Okay, so for the record, this is Marcus Widener and Fidel Guerra Cuevas. And it's January 7, 2022. And
23.
23, yeah. It's going to take me a while to get that right, 2023. And to start out, Fidel, tell me your full name, where you currently live, where you were born, and what year you were born.
All right. Well, my name is Fidel Guerra Cuevas. If it is hard to spell, I can do it if you want to.
I've got it. Yeah.
Got it. All right. I live in Springfield, Oregon, and I was born in Reynosa, Tamaulipas, Mexico, 1967.
1967. Great. Well, let's start by talking about, I want to talk about living in Springfield, but first I want to talk about your job. Tell me about where you're currently employed and about what led you into that career.
All right. Well, my current employment is at Peace Health, or the healthcare industry. I've been working for Peace Health since May 16, 1997 to the present time. And what led me to work at the hospital or the healthcare industry, it's really that I like helping people. That's the main reason. Yeah.
Did anybody else in your family do work in the healthcare sector?
No, not to my knowledge. Because in Mexico, before I came to the United States, none of my family worked in the healthcare industry, and so I'm the first one.
The first one, okay.
That work not directly with patients, but in the ancillary departments. I work at the shipping and receiving at the main
shipping
hospital.
and receiving. Okay.
Right.
And so you deal. I remember when we last had an email. You're saying, "Yeah, I can't do an interview while I'm on leave the loading dock." So, do you spend most of your time down on the loading dock?
Yes, I am. What happens right now at the Riverbend Hospital? It is a one-man loading dock thing, and so I have to be there, because of the trucks, the oncoming trucks that come in. And most of the things at the hospital come without notice, because that's how it is. So I have to be there, and the only time that I'm not is when I'm on lunch and all that, and somebody else takes my phone and all that.
Right.
Yes.
So then you probably handle everything from food that comes in for the kitchen to basic medical supplies, like the medications and the stuff for the rooms.
Yeah.
You don't actually receive like an organ when they bring an organ for somebody to be replaced or something, do you?
Well, the loading dock is a very it's broad to explain exactly what I do, because it's always changing. But my typical day at the loading dock.
Yeah. Tell me about your typical day. That's a good way to do this.
My typical day is I get there 8:30 in the morning. I check my email to see, because there's people that come in to work before I did at 8:30. So I check emails for questions about, hey, Fidel, we're looking for this, where'd that go? When this is coming, let us know when it arrives and all those things. So I check my emails. And then I also do ship outs via FedEx or UPS from the prior night, because FedEx comes at 2:00. Whatever packages I get after 2:00, then I have to do it the next day. So that's what I do. And I do that before our Peace Health supply truck comes in, which is around 10 in the morning. So by that time, I take care of the other businesses. Sorry. Then when the truck comes, it has the regular supplies for the hospital, for the medical floors, mostly. And so I help download the truck, upload things that need to go back to the warehouse. And usually it brings packages that are ground packages. Priority packages come around 9 or some 9, 10, it depends on FedEx or UPS schedule. It depends on the weather. Because a
Mhm.
lot of the medical items come from the East Coast.
Right.
A lot of things depend on the weather, Oh,
Right.
something's happening, and so we depend on that so much. So I do that 3 times a day. Our truck comes
Mhm.
3 times a day,
Right.
and so once things come out of the truck, I have to deliver them to the medical floors. But there is two different supplies that we do. So we have the regular medical supplies for daily use for the patients
Mhm.
on each medical floor.
Right.
What I do is the supplies also for medical floors, but they are more for like special orders, special requests that are not in the warehouse. They have
Right.
to order via FedEx or that. So that's what I do. So that's 3 times a day.
Mhm.
There is this part of my job that is in a special occasions, it changes. And it changes because of the holidays, like Thanksgiving, Christmas, Employee Appreciation Day, when we have sport events or any kind of events in the community, Eugene, Springfield.
Mhm.
And so it requires everything comes to the loading dock, it comes in and out of the loading dock for those events.
Right.
So there is a lot of things that I had to rearrange or make phone calls or get in touch with people in the community for that.
Right. But you're responsible for everything from getting it off the truck or helping the people with the truck get it into the loading area and then getting it up to all the medical floors. You also
Yes,
deliver it all up there. Okay.
yes.
And is that a one-person job?
My
Do you
loading
have
dock,
any help?
I don't have help. No, it's just
Mhm.
one person. I have volunteers sometimes, but the volunteers is not reliable, because it
Right.
depends when they can or not. But mostly it's myself. And but the part when I'm talking about everything that comes in the truck, uh, there is a team. We have a team in my department. I work at the supply chain department,
Uh-huh.
and so the team that helps me that delivers all the supplies at the medical floors, that's a different team, but we are the same department.
Mhm.
And so I'm the kind of the face of our supply department where all the supplies come into the hospital. And you are right, I receive, like when there's like tissues for the surgeries or special
Right.
deliveries where the patient is waiting on the table or something. I say, hey, Fidel, it needs to go right now. I
Yeah.
have to drop everything and that has to go right away. So I take
So
care
you
of
must face some kind of tense emergency moments when there's something that they're waiting on, which you need to get to them, and people are anxious for it to arrive as quickly as possible, huh?
that is correct. So I have a little PCL minivan always available for me where something that it needs to be brought up to the hospital, like as soon as it gets there, I can drive the truck to the warehouse, which is about 2 blocks away from the hospital. So I get in and I pick it up because a lot of times our truck is not available or is
Right.
delivering something else, and so I have
So
to
you
jump.
might have to go to the warehouse yourself
I have to
then.
go and get it
Yeah.
myself.
Now, so let's see. When did you come to the United States from Mexico? What year?
I came in 1989.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so you didn't start at Peace Health right away. What did you do before you started Peace Health?
Well, before IP's help,
Well, you were pretty young then. So
yeah, well, 1989, I
yeah.
first arrived in Eugene, and I arrived to the Eugene downtown 1989. I walked down and I was looking for, at that time it used to be Chicano Affairs, an agency
Uh-huh.
over there now it is called
Yeah.
Centro Latino Americano.
Central Latino. Yeah.
Yeah, so I arrived and then I tried to get into the into the Chicano Affairs, Centro Latino, but I couldn't because of my legal status, my immigration
Yeah.
status. And
Hmm.
so I had to go to the Eugene mission, live there for 2 weeks. Then after
Uh-huh.
that, I just didn't feel comfortable with the June mission, because at that time then I met people on the outside, like Latin American friends. So
Right.
then I live on the river. I sleep under the bridge.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah.
I sleep on the trucks, on the
Yeah.
train trucks. And so then uh, at some point, like in 1990 or something like that, I went to a little store in Blair Street. It's called La Tiendita. And
Yeah.
so I
Yeah. I've gone in there to buy. I remember when I needed some dried chipotle peppers. I
yeah,
couldn't find them anywhere. I went in there and they had like a big old barrel of them. Yeah.
yeah. So at that time, the first jobs that I had was, digging dishes and helping as a helper with plumbers and things like that, and Vinita. And I just
Mhm.
daily laborer. So I had to be at the Jiu-Jitsu mission, waiting for people to come in, and they were looking for help, for that day.
So you're doing day labor basically.
Pretty much, yes. And so
And
then
so how old were you then when you in 1989 you were
20 something,
in your early 20s?
I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah.
And did you come to the United States by yourself or with any other family members?
No, it was just by myself,
Yeah. Hmm.
And so what I was doing is, so I was doing those jobs, and I also work on the picking strawberries, like on the farm, in the
Hmm.
fields. And I worked out on Junction City. I used to work in Junction City as well. So when I went to the La Tiendita, that's when I met Oscar, and Oscar told me about a program to the University of Oregon called the high school diploma equivalency.
Hmm.
And so I went to the University of Oregon for 3 months. I got my GED, and that was 1990, I think. And so then after that, that really changed my life, because that's what I got to know other people besides just my Thai community on Blair Street, on the Whitaker
Right.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
So that's really what gave me give me like a second view of my progress, in the United States.
Uh-huh. Wow. That's quite a story. You must have had to been pretty disciplined to do that high school equivalency program when you were still your employment was so precarious in your housing. What about your housing then? Did you eventually get a permanent place to live?
When I was at the university, I had I sleep in the dorms there for 3 months, but
Oh, okay. Yeah.
of course, but after that, then I had to go back into the community,
Hmm.
and then go back to where I used to live with my friends and everything on Jackson Street there on the Whitaker neighborhood. And so and usually what happens with the Mexican community is that we leave all together, because that's the only way we can afford to
Yeah.
pay rent and all this and that. So because of that, I had an experience where, as I said, I used to work doing jobs, landscaping and farms and everything. So I had an experience where some of my roommates were working just regular jobs, but they also were doing illegal business, like selling drugs and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
when the police comes, they don't care who sells or not. So they had a raid.
Yeah.
I was part of that raid and everything, but I had nothing to do with it. So
Right.
I went through the court system, and I was dismissed and everything. So that's when I decided, I don't know, I had to do my best to find a place with myself. And
Yeah.
so then because of that experience, then I decided to go back to Mexico. And
Hmm.
then later I changed my mind, and then I came back again in 1992. And then when I came back in 1992, that's when really my life has changed, because I met a person here in Eugene, Mary Cherio, just like not just my friend, but like a family. So I met
Hmm.
her through one of my teachers at the University of Oregon. I met her through my teacher, and we became good friends until today. And so that was my emotional support and everything else. So she provided a lot of housing and things like that. And so that's when I got more stable. And then I got a job. I got a job at the Valley River Inn Hotel back in 1994. And then from there, then I got another job in Georgina as well, because I had some issues because of my immigration status. And so finally I work at a restaurant in downtown on 13 and Oak Street or something like that. So that's when I met the lady that I married to. I married her,
okay.
and that's how I legalized my status. And
Oh, okay.
then I work, and
That's
so that's how I ended up working at Sacred Heart Hospital in 1997.
and so did you so you got permanent status here and you didn't have to worry about that, but how did you get the idea to go work at the hospital? You'd worked in a lot of different places. You'd done day labor, you worked in a hotel, you worked at a store, La Tiendita. It sounds like you did a lot of different things, but at some point you made a decision to look for a job at the hospital.
Yeah, well, as I stated earlier today, I really do like helping people. I mean, when I
Mm-hmm.
work at the fields and I work in there, I always help people, and I always get along with people. But I remember when I was working on 13th Avenue in Hillier, and it happens a week before May 16, 1997. A week earlier, I was walking down and I look at the hospital and I go, huh, well, now that I have legal status, I wonder how it feels to work at a hospital. So I
Mm-hmm.
decided, and I went into the hospital and I asked questions. They directed me to the third floor, which used to be the human resources. I
Right.
applied, I filled the application, and they called me within a week, and they got me the
Wow.
drug test and all that stuff.
Uh-huh.
And they called me right away. And so
Wow.
that's how I started. I started in the kitchen, and I worked in the kitchen department for about 3.5 years. And then from there, I applied to the supply chain department, which used to be called materials management before.
Right. Now that was over at the campus at the old Sacred Heart Hospital facility, but
That
now
is
you're at
correct.
Riverbend, aren't you? At Riverbend now.
Yes, I am. So
Okay, and so
what happens since in 2000 when I moved to supply chain,
mhm,
and from there until 2005, that's when peace held, but the old Sony plant on
mhm,
International Way in Springfield.
right,
That was the beginning of what Riverbend is all about. So peace held bought
yeah,
the warehouse, and because I worked in the supply chain, I took part of readying or getting the warehouse ready for the future of what Riverbend was going to be. So we set
right,
up the warehouse, everything, and then I got hired on a department of the hospital. It's called property planning. So I went from
mhm,
supply chain to a new department in property planning that was it had they had they had to be taking care of the new hospital, set it all
mhm,
up and get it going. So
right,
so so in 2005 I was working for this department, and I was working with Riverbend when there was not Riverbend yet, but the beginning and everything. So
right.
pretty much into 2008 when we opened the hospital to the public in 2000 August 16, 2008. So I've been there since the beginning when there was no hospital.
So you were really there as the hospital was creating that new supply chain, the new facility.
That is correct.
Yeah, that must have been pretty interesting because it was a brand new facility, and there are probably all sorts of problems to be solved that people didn't anticipate.
Yeah, my biggest every because it took like 3 years, of course, to build it at 3.5 years. So every floor that they were building, it was my hope that sometime the higher they go, I will get to see these sisters mountains.
Hmm.
So when they got 6, 7, and 8, that's when I got to and I start seeing the
Right.
Central Oregon mountains.
Oh, how interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very interesting. What a way to remember your job when it got high enough to see the mountains. That's cool.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you had been living at some point you moved to Springfield?
Yeah, I live in Eugene since 1989. Of course, then I went back to Mexico and came back in 92. And then in 2000, uh, so my first marriage didn't last, I think, 6.5 years.
Hmm.
I divorced, and then I met my second wife at the hospital as well. I met her at the housekeeping department at the
Oh,
University
okay.
District. So we dated for a little while, and then we lived together, and so we had a family, and we bought a house in here in Springfield in 2000.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, I'm still paying the mortgage, but so we got a house in Springfield, and since then I've been living in Springfield. But
Hmm.
back in those days, my experience has been that Springfield wasn't like back in those days. It wasn't like the place to come and visit or something. You got this thing where, oh no, don't go to Springfield. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
I
remember
always, I always
that.
wonder, and I go, why? And but I got really to the point where I really love Springfield. It's just it is a beautiful
Yeah.
town.
Well, I'm going to come back to that question because I want to ask you about how Springfield's changed. But um, okay, so you moved over to Springfield. Let me ask you a question about going back to Mexico. You went back to Mexico for a while, but you decided not to stay. Why did you decide to come back to the United States after visiting Mexico? Was it you weren't finding opportunities that you needed there?
I think what happens what happened when I went back to Mexico, the reason was because of I told you before that I got into this legal situation when I went to the courts and the case was dismissed.
Hmm. Right,
That really left a mark on me, and I go, oh my God, I don't want to do this. I went back to Mexico, and just because I got homesick,
uh-huh,
it was like I just talking to my family and everything, and so I said, no. Of course, at that time I was living, I had no choices, and I said, well, I don't want to live with friends, and I didn't have the funds or a good job or have my own
right.
apartment, anything. So I decided, I'm just gonna go back because I don't see any like future for me here on the living
Hmm.
conditions that I had.
Right,
So that's what I went back. But then when I was back in Mexico, then you know, I didn't like it either because now when you have the two worlds that you have experienced, then it is a tough decision. So I decided, I'm going to give it another try. So I did it
right.
again, but I come from a very religious background. My dad was
Hmm.
a preacher
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay.
in Mexico, so all my family comes from a religious background, Protestant,
Hmm.
not Catholics.
Right.
So they had me on their prayers, So we're gonna pray for you, but of course they didn't want
Hmm.
me to leave again. But I
Right.
had to make the decision, so I did, and so it wasn't easy, But as I said, in 1992, in July, that's when I met my friend Mary through one of my teachers, and since my life has changed.
Yeah. And so tell me a little bit more about Mary. You said that she had, been your support. You'd met her through a teacher. What sort of person is she, or why was that so important to you?
Well, so I was living with my teacher when I came back the second time. I didn't want to live with my or live through the experience with my when I used to live in the Whitaker neighborhood. So I decided to call my teacher, and I said, "Hey, do you have a room little space?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I have a little space." So I was living with him, and so one day I answered a phone call because he said, hey, if you don't answer the phone, and so I answered the phone and I talked to Mary. And I didn't know who she was, but I thought, and we talked. She speak a little Spanish, so we became friends. And then
Hmm.
and then since then, she asked Fidel. She asked me, Fidel, if I need help, can you help me in the house, the
Right.
garden? More like a helping in her home with things. And so
Hmm.
that's how we became friends. And I met her family, her son and her daughter. And then and then we just became friends.
Great.
So
So, and what about, you were saying that you're from a religious family and that your father is a preacher. Do you have a faith community here? Have you found a church here, or?
No, I don't. So what happened is, so I come from the Church of Christ
Uh-huh.
church, and so I have had a hard time finding a Church of Christ in Spanish. I participated for a little while on the Church of Christ in English, but I find like I didn't feel like it was like I don't know how to say it, but me praising God wasn't like as natural because I didn't know the sing in English or anything, So
Right.
so I find one in Salem, but it was so far away, and so I
Uh-huh.
couldn't make it because at that time I didn't have transportation, and it was just
Right.
it was not easy for me. So, but I currently I'm not participating in any church.
Right. That's interesting that worshiping in your own language is really important. I hadn't really thought about that, but that's pretty obvious that if you're brought up in a church and with the language of that church, even though you speak very fluent English, it might not be the same kind of thing as you remember.
Yeah, I think it's like poetry, It's like the translation from Spanish
Uh-huh.
to English is
Yeah.
very different, That
Yeah. That's very interesting. Um, okay, let's see. I think you've talked about your typical day. Okay, here's a question for you. Are there special skills or personal qualities that you need to perform your job? How would you describe the most important skills and qualities you need to do a good job?
well, when I I think, let's say when I go on vacation for a week or 2 weeks or something like that, there has been a lot of people that replace me for that time at the loading dock, and most of the people that have replaced me, they never want to come back. So they said,
Oh
no, I
yeah.
mean, no, not that they quit. They just said, no, I want to do something else. I don't want Fidel's job.
Hmm.
And so it is frustrating to me that I keep training people, but then later on it says, Fidel, I know, but I don't like your job, and I don't like your hours, man. It's too much work. I don't know how you do it. And this and this.
Uh-huh.
And so that's how it is until today,
Uh-huh.
So I think one of the special requirements for my job, as I said, it's just one person loading dock. At the
Yeah.
beginning, we used to be three, but you know how things change and everything.
Yeah.
They changed the things around and everything, so they made it to one person. So my special requirements to do my job, I think, is you have to have organizational skills. Like I really like to organize in how I don't do one thing at a time. When I do
Right.
something and say this is gonna be like this, and later when I came back on, I'm gonna do this. This is coming, this is going, and so I have a lot
Right.
of that
Multitasking. You got to do a
multitasking.
lot of things at once. Yeah.
But you have to have the physical aspects of it, which is, as I said, I used to work in the fields. I used to work doing dishes.
Yeah.
I used to pick tomatoes and oranges. So physical, it's just that's what I've been doing since I was a kid in Mexico.
Yeah.
I used to work in a U.S. Mexico factory in Mexico. I'm from Reynosa, across the border, so I used to work it's called maquiladoras in
Yeah.
Mexico. So
What sort of factory was it? What did they make?
it used to be it's called Johnson Controls.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I've heard of them.
yeah. So I used
Johnson
to,
Controls, they have one of the most famous labor law cases in the United States. It was
yeah,
about employment discrimination. Yeah.
yeah. So I worked for that company in Mexico, and so I know the headquarters was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And so I remember, and I also work at the warehouse when I work in Mexico. And so I remember
Uh-huh.
the difference in Mexico. It's I work when I started at that company. I work as a union member, But once you moved to the warehouse, you were not union member no more.
Mhm.
You were called trusted employee. You changed from union to trusted, like they trust me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is really interesting.
It
I've
is
never
called,
heard that before.
it is called, in Spanish, it's called empleado de confianza or trusted employee. So,
Huh.
so when I work at the warehouse, then I become a trusted employee. And then when the big CEO of Johnson Controls came to Reynosa, I mean, it was, God, I don't know, it was like 85 or I don't know, it's 86, 85, 86. So this guy, and I still have his name in my head since then, is Bill Ranganat. Used to be the name of the guy, the big headquarters in Johnson Controls. So he came from Wiswaukee to my hometown. And I was chosen by my boss at that time to say something in English because at that time, that's when I wanted to learn a little English and everything. So they said, oh, maybe Fidel. And so I remember that they chose me and I practiced something small to say because they had a celebration or something. And so I still remember when that happened and I give a little tiny speech for that guy.
Oh. And so you had been a member of the union, and was that the official union or the thought, or which, would you remember the which union it was that you belonged to before
It
you?
became a trusted employee. Oh, are you
Yeah,
talking about Mexico?
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the name of the union. I don't remember, but I know that in Mexico, all the unions, because in Mexico it's very how do you call it, like monopoly.
Yeah,
All our whole union is just one guy.
yeah, yeah.
His name is Fidel Velasquez. Was Fidel Velasquez.
Right. Yeah,
So
that's very interesting. You've got a really interesting background.
yeah, well, what
It's a
was
very interesting story you have to tell.
yeah, but what was nice about being a trusted employee, which created a lot of resentment with my brothers, is like once you, I'm just going to give you an example how different it is. Imagine that if it would have been the same here in the United States, where I work at the hospital as a union employee, but then they say, no, Fidel, you're going to be a trusted employee. You're
Yeah,
not making, like right now, let's say I'm making $29 an hour. Automatically, if I become a trusted employee, I will be making $58 an hour.
yeah,
So I was making double the regular wages. So I was making more money than all my brothers and sisters.
yeah. So that would cause some resentment.
Got resentment, so that means I had to share more in the household than anybody else.
Yeah,
They said, no, Fidel has to do more.
yeah, right. Very interesting. So, what is the most satisfying thing about your work, and what are the things that you find the most challenging?
Well, the most satisfying job thing about my job is I really enjoy working with people. I especially the service that I provide to not just my coworkers, my caregivers, my fellow caregivers, but to the public, the truck drivers, and I really feel that, I mean, I go from when I receive a package the patient is waiting for in a room or something like Prime package or Amazon package or anything like that for a patient. For me, that's priority. So if I see a package you say patient, I'll take it right away to the admitting department, and they have volunteers and they take it right away, because I think if I was a patient and somebody sending me a present or flowers or something, I want to get that right as soon as I can. So if I feel that, like if it was my family member or something, and I say, hey, I drop everything else and I'm going to give it so that the patient can have it.
Yeah.
And
So, do the flowers and the gift baskets and things come to the loading dock where you are for the patients?
yes, yeah, every day,
Okay. Yeah. So
every day.
that is a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So
That
and so usually what happens is before I used to bring it directly to the patient, But
right,
because of all the rules that have changed, so like when the government comes in, I know we have an agency from the government that checks that we're doing everything right, that we follow the
right,
cleanliness and all that. So they make changes where whoever gets into the patient room had to follow some rules and everything. So they
sure,
said, okay, Fidel, you're not doing that. We have volunteers because they
yeah.
have some system where they check if you do something or not. And so
So is this mostly about since COVID?
uh, yes, most of that has been since COVID, those late changes. But I think at the hospital we are trying to get something called the magnet recognition in the hospital. I don't know, you're
Hmm.
familiar what a magnet is?
No,
So a magnet is the highest certification a hospital can
a
get.
rating. Yeah,
A
right.
rating, exactly.
Yeah.
So what has changed, what that has does make my job a little more difficult is because now everything that comes to the hospital, since I'm talking about since a couple of years ago, almost is when all the supplies come, like FedEx and everything else that comes, I had to take them out of the box. So
Right.
cardboard is not allowed on the medical floors,
Oh,
on the
okay.
medical
That's a big
areas.
change,
Yeah, it is
right?
a big change. So the reason is because let's say when I have supplies that come on boxes, before the nurses will open the box in the clean
Uh-huh.
utility area, and that process created contamination that will affect the
Right,
patient because you never know that a lot of the boxes come from overseas, all
right.
over the world. So they didn't like the idea that all those boxes travel so much from whoever
Yeah.
warehouses and everything, and then get to the medical floor and it's there, and it brought contamination or something. They said no, cardboard stays where it is. Take the product out, put them on totes, plastic
So
totes.
that's a huge change in your job. So you
Yeah,
have to do all that opening of the boxes at the
yeah.
loading dock, basically.
It
Yeah.
wasn't easy. It wasn't easy, but I think that because I have the experience of picking tomatoes and a lot of things, so labor is not a problem. So that's why the
Right.
people that replace me, they don't like it because it's, oh
They
man,
didn't
so
like
much
it.
work, on this and this.
So your job became much more intensive when they made that change.
It is.
That's, yeah. So, and what are the other things? Tell me a little bit about working during COVID.
Uh, well, it was, I mean, I'm glad I didn't get infected or sick with that.
You never got sick.
I never got sick,
Wow.
but I know that I heard because I had access to all the information, but for some reason, and there are some people that even if they get in contact, they don't get sick.
Yeah.
It's different. I don't know how it works, but I was just glad I didn't get sick. But it was challenging, because I had to deliver supplies to the COVID areas.
Yeah.
I mean, not inside of the care areas, just outside, but it was constant for almost a year and a half.
Yeah.
And it was, I, in my 25 years, River at the P-cell hospitals, I never seen freezers outside the loading dock, my loading dock, the
Hmm.
thermos where deceased patients, because we run out of room in the morgue.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
never experienced that, and I go, oh wow, it was an experience that I just never thought I will see, and
So what you saw was the overflow of patients and probably the overflow of
yeah,
deceased dead patients.
yeah. So what happens is when the COVID was at the strongest, I used to see in the information that we have 125 COVID patients. We have 65 on the eighth floor, which is the where
ICU.
they don't require the oxygen machines and anything like that. So observation
Hmm.
area. So we had the information as, hey, there is 25 on the ICU, there is 65 here, there is something over there, and like that. And the supplies that were coming in that came from the government, it was amazing. Like there was pallets
Yeah.
and pallets and pallets, and
Right.
it was wild. Yeah. So the nice thing is that I had access to a lot of, well, I mean, when I had my COVID, I was one of the first to have the COVID vaccination. So, and it was a
Oh,
requirement.
were you? Uh-huh.
So it was a requirement. If I didn't have it, I cannot work at PCell.
And let me ask you about that because, of course, it was controversial. Some people weren't in favor of it.
Mhm.
How did you feel about it being required of you?
I feel I feel comfortable, you know. I mean, I know some of my coworkers quit. They didn't want to do that, and so I wasn't against it because I think, especially in Mexico, you know, I guess the United States is the same. You're born and you have a lot of vaccinations and everything. So I thought, you know, didn't see it as it was my personal choice, just as my
Right.
coworkers' personal choice not to. So that's the same with the union. It was the same with the union. People didn't want the union. People, you know, like that. So
Right.
yeah,
Well, this is a good place to turn into the questions about the unions. Well, no, one other question before I talk to you about the union. We're sort of towards the end of the stuff, but this is very interesting, Fidel. And tell me a little bit about your relationships with your coworkers and your bosses and the customers and the public. How would you describe the overall atmosphere
yeah.
at the hospital?
So, Mr. Marcus, so before I get into answer you this question, I just
Mhm.
wanna, I think of the prior
Yeah,
question,
sure.
you asked me something about what's the most challenging. I know I answered all the
Yes,
other,
yes,
but
yes.
I forgot the challenging. Well, the challenging part is when I was telling you that the people that replaced me, you know,
Hmm.
that they are going through so many, and so I get the point when I say, man, will I ever find someone who can do not the job the way I do it? You know,
Hmm.
someone like me that can do the job like that, but at least somebody that shows interest.
Uh-huh.
So the most challenging thing for me is about employees, new employees, or my current employees who feel unmotivated to learn.
Uh-huh.
So that's the most challenging because now I can tell who's motivated or who's not. So
Right.
when my boss come and ask me later on, hey Fidel, how's Grant doing? And I said, I don't know, man. You know, so I mean that's all those years you can tell who has it or not, I think.
Well, that raises a question. Do you think that younger workers are less motivated
I think
than
so.
they used to be?
I think so. I have teenagers now. My son is gonna be 18, and I have to deal with their point of view of the world and the they need to work. You know, and I said, well, I don't have to work like you do, Dad. You know, I had to find out other ways. And I said, well, you can, sure. You know, I said,
Yeah.
you have to go to
So how
school.
many you have two children?
Yeah, my daughter is 19 and my son 17.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
So that's what I'm talking about. The
Yeah,
new
my
generation.
condolences. Well, mine are 30 now, but yeah, I so yeah, that's a challenge for sure.
It is a challenge, you know, because there's, I mean, especially the hospital right now, I got the feeling that they don't find an older generation that wants to, you know, probably because the pool for new workers is a lot of young people. There is no
Yeah,
like people with a lot of experience of job ethics. So a lot of the
yeah,
people that get hired, I mean, as an example, this person that just got hired at the hospital, he came, got the orientation, blah blah blah. And he started working, and the second day he called in sick. And then, so what happens? You know, the ethics is like, you know, you have to. It's usually like 3 months where you got to prove yourself and everything. And but
right,
no, in 3 months they can call like so many times, and
right.
but the hospital doesn't have a choice because there's not much. You know, there's a shortage of people everywhere.
Yeah, you have such a labor shortage.
Yeah,
Right. Um, how about getting along with coworkers and the boss?
yeah. So I think that's one of my strong points or my attributes. It's about getting along with people, not just with my boss and we call it our leadership at the hospital. I really get along with my caregivers or my customers. It's a little more difficult with the truck drivers because they have a different, I don't know if it's upbringing or something, but truck drivers are a little more challenging to me, because they're more natural. I think they're like, they do a lot of explicit stuff, and I say, oh man, you gotta, this is a hospital. You just have to relax. I mean, especially like have to deal with a lot of them not wanting to wear a mask.
Right.
And I said, hey man, you have to wear a mask. And well, why? It says, you know what? Okay, you don't want to drive, you don't want a mask, and that's just the regulations here.
Yeah.
He says, well, and so I had to get my bosses involved in a lot of that, and because I didn't want to have a physical interaction because of that. But my relationship is pretty much good with my bosses and with my coworkers and the public. So like, for example, this interview that I haven't, it wouldn't have happened if I did not have good relation with Kevin and with people and all that.
I can tell that.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, after this interview, I got the invitation to have this. I got an email from Peace Health that what they wanted to do the same, but through Peace Health. Say, hey, Fidel, we work on the articles in Peace Health. It's called Caregivers Corner, and we like to know our employees. It's a monthly article thing, and so we were talking to people. We would like you to see if you don't mind, if you don't do this. And I said, sure. So they gave me a questionnaire, and I answered and sent some pictures and so. But I was like, I was thinking, well, that's a strange start of a new year.
Yeah, a lot of people are interested in you. Well, it's a good sign, Fidel.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how you got involved in the union.
So I get involved in the union. I guess it was very, I felt like a weight, like it's like, in Mexico, I was part of a union, but in here, I never been part of a union. So for me, what I knew about Peace Health's background on being unionized before, and because Peace Health has a history of being tough on unions, that's what I heard, though, what I learned from people. So when, for some reason, the organizers at first, they find out, hey, who are the employees that are been there at Peace Health the longest? And at that time, I was one of those longest ones. So they came looking for me. They were looking for the people that have been there the longest. So they targeted this person and that person and that person, and that was me. And the thing is, for me, it was easy for me to reach because I work at the loading dock.
Sure.
So I'm easy to reach. So suddenly I saw this person at the loading dock, and I say, hey, Fidel, I'm I'm working for the union, and say, hey, what's your name? What do you think about the union? And then I go, oh my God. I was a little concerned because of my family, everything that, what if something happens and I get let go and this and that, of course, it's part of it, gets in your head. But there were some other of my coworkers that they were feel very, very strong on that. And we'll get together and say, come on, Fidel, and so I was able to see, I got to read information about the pros and cons about the union. And when I got when the Peace Health find out about that, management try to get us not to do the union. And so we have like meetings every 2-3 days. Hey, no, it was very, very, it was very difficult times, because once the union organizations were not allowed to get into the hospital grounds, so we had to meet outside and emails and everything. And so it was very, very difficult because lots of we had to wear some little tags in our, like,
Right.
where you are pro-union or you're not. So it was really more like political, like
Hmm.
I'm for Trump, I know for Trump, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
So
Right.
it was very, very strange to know that I'm working with someone that doesn't want the union, but we have to work
Right.
together.
Right.
So,
And
so
so what year was that? Remind me what year the union campaign was over there.
well, this is our second contract. So 6 years ago, 2015, 14,
Yeah.
something like that.
Now, even though that the whole idea of having people polarize the yes votes and the no votes, you felt it was important enough that it didn't make you so uncomfortable that you didn't want to be involved. Clearly, you thought it was important enough to
Yeah, I think
stay
I think that
involved.
I think that what made me get it close to or have seen the union as a very good thing for my future was that I experienced, number one, the races, like Peace Hill. There were like 3 years in a row that we didn't get races because we had to meet some goals. There were like 3 goals. Hey, if we met this goal and we meet this goal and this goal, then we're gonna get like 2% or something like that. But if we only accomplish one goal, then it's gonna be only 20.25%.
Yeah.
Or sometimes we didn't meet any goals and we didn't do nothing. We didn't get any raise. So there were like
Mhm.
3 years of no races because of the economical. We had some economical thing in the country and we couldn't get raises. But we find out that the leadership on the top, they get bonuses no matter what.
Yeah.
So that was a tough one, to digest. And so and I also experienced this part where my managers before, there is this thing at PCL, at least when I started working at the PCL. So because I worked in the kitchen at the beginning, and there was this thing at PCL where if I want to make a little more money, I could if I move to supply chain, So, but I have to work in the kitchen. I worked 3 or 4 years in the kitchen, but I always look, I can make an extra $2 if I move to supply when there is an opening. And that was the thing, But then when you got managers that say, I have a friend or my son or my daughter or my cousin,
Right.
whatever. So these people came in making more money. And so your hope for a better future at PCL of making more money, it
Right.
wasn't possible because the managers brought their close
Right.
friends.
And so if you had a contract with a seniority clause, you would have some right to that
Right.
job.
That's
Yeah.
right.
That's such
So
a very basic union right. Yeah.
yeah.
That's a good example. So now you were on the organizing committee?
What is organizing? Like the union, like bargaining?
Yeah, when the union came in to be representative, were you on the committee that was organizing the workers?
No, mostly because of my work at the loading dock. As I said, but I was we call them the CAT team.
Right, CAT team. Okay.
The CAT team where I get the information and I share it with my coworkers. But on the first bargaining team, I wasn't part of that. I was bargaining team on the second bargaining on the second contract.
And how did you like being on the bargaining team?
It was another experience. It was very.
Yeah.
We were there until 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And so we were ready to say, okay, if PCL comes back with the same offer, then we're just gonna walk out and we're gonna go talk to our members and we might strike. Who knows?
Right.
We were lucky that PCL came back with a different offer and we accepted it, and that was it.
Right.
It was again, it was very strange for me because a lot of people know me at Riverbend or PCL. It was hard for me to see my bosses on the other side of the table. A lot of the managers and directors and everything that I see on everyday basis because of my deliveries or whatever. Because I'm there with them, tell them, hey, I deserve to make more money because of this, because of that. You cannot do this, and so.
Right.
And then after that, we had to go back to work and hey, how's it going, boss? Hey, here you go. Here's your package. And this is Fidel. Can you ship this? Fidel this and Fidel that. And so, but it was very professional that what happened at the union bargaining team stays. So that was different, than when we work
Right.
in, and that was very interesting to me.
Do you think that being involved in the bargaining team created more respect for you from management, the fact that you were involved in that?
I think so. I think, not just from the upper management, but from your coworkers, they always say, hey,
Mhm.
Fidel, can you help me with this? Fidel, do you think you can do
Right.
this? And so there's a lot of, I don't know if it's respect, but, that they can rely on you for information, say, hey, Fidel,
Right.
do you think, like nowadays with the new contract, they ask me a lot of questions. And so there's some questions that I cannot answer because I wasn't part of the bargaining team. So I had to call Kevin, say, hey, Kevin, I have a
Mhm.
question from a member, blah, blah, blah. What do you think? And then
Right.
so I relay information to him and he gets back to me. And that's
Right.
how it works.
And so, do you have any official position in the union now? Are you a shop steward or
Just
on any committees or
no, I'm just a
executive
shop.
board?
Yeah,
You're a shop steward?
I'm just a shop store for the union.
And
Yeah.
how do you like that? How do you like that role?
I like the role. The only part I don't like is when people get fired. That's
Yeah.
not a fun part. It's not a fun part.
No, it's hard
No.
to represent people when they get fired, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's especially when there was one time when I said, it's a conflict of interest. I can. So then another one. I think it's really difficult when one of your friends is gonna get fired.
Yeah.
It's I don't. I say, I can't. But again, there is this thing where I think it's fair. I think it's fair when everything is documented. Say, hey, look, you're calling sick this time. You didn't provide any reason as to, if it was medical, this and this. You didn't do that in this. We give you an opportunity, this and this, but this is it. So,
Right.
and so I have. I like when there is just a warning or just an investigative, investigation only, like that. But a lot of times they call me when somebody that doesn't speak English. So I have to do
Mhm.
translation. So not only representing the union member, but also translating for the union member.
Right. Now, is there kind of an unfair, how many other, are there some other members whose bilingual skills are as strong as yours? It sounds like maybe a lot of those things come your way.
Yeah, no, the other ones that speak English and Spanish, they are not union stewards.
Mhm.
So yeah, Kevin has asked me, hey, Fidel, you think other union members that speak Spanish would like to be part of the steward team? But they don't feel like they want to be part of it, because it's not easy. My job at the loading dock, like, because I've been doing it for so long, I know how to work the hours and everything. So it depends.
Right.
It's like I have a speed. I have a regular speed, and then I have crazy speed. So I have so many speeds where I say, hey, I'm looking forward, and so I want to do this and this because I have to go to a meeting for the union. So
Mhm.
I make it where I know I can do it. But
Yeah.
but it's because I speed up so much in a way that I know I can do it. And people say,
That puts a big burden on you though, to have to represent people and also do your job. And sometimes you probably have to, you have to negotiate with your boss about when you get time off for union business.
it is, but I think that the nice things about speaking in Spanish is like you can vent in Spanish and nobody will say, so that's one of the advantages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I do have some days like for example, when it's special occasions, like I say, that like Christmas and Thanksgiving and employee appreciation and sports. We have like, because of the end of the year or the middle of the year for, you know, new equipment, capital purchases and all that stuff. We're talking about CT machines, ultrasound machines, surgical equipment, tables, all kinds. They have a time where they get old and they have to be replaced and everything. It is wild.
Yeah.
So I get emails and everything. Hey, Fidel, like for example, they would say, Fidel, February 3rd, there's going to be 15 surgical tables, and there's going to be this, Fidel, and with this and this. And so I had to make sure that there is a bay dedicated to that.
Right.
So, and then I have to deal with, we only have 3 bays.
3
And so,
bays.
3
Okay.
bays. So I have to make sure, well, there's going to be 1 bay taken all day because it's not something that has to be replacing the old surgical tables or the equipment
Yeah.
or whatever it is. It takes whole day. And so I deal with two bays, and then I have to get the regular supply. So I have to be like a policeman. Hey, you stay,
Yeah.
and so I have to be directing and on top of phone calls and emails and face-to-face customer service. So there are sometimes, there are those days, it can be 2 or 3 days, and sometimes I had to get in earlier than 8:30 because of that, and mainly because when those deliveries happen, they come early in the morning, like 7 in the morning, 6 or something,
Mhm.
and I cannot be there at 8:30 and not have control on anything.
Right.
So
So, and some of these pallets and objects are bulky and heavy. So, are you using a forklift?
I use an electrical jack, the one that you push, and manual
Yeah.
jacks, but I also use a lift stacker, like something that you lift the pallet up and down. So
Uh-huh.
I have electrical jack that you carry things,
Mm-hmm.
and the lift or the stacker lift is the one that you bring a pallet and you can put them on top of another,
Yeah.
where you lift heavy things and because you don't want to, it's too heavy or something. So yeah,
How dangerous is your job? Would you describe it?
it's dangerous if you don't if you're not aware of what the things that can hurt you. Like I
Yeah.
noticed, like when I'm not on my 100%, like I'm sleepy or I'm this and this and this, and it can be dangerous, especially with the forklifts, because they go and they don't care if it's your food or whatever. They don't have automatic. The automatic thing
Yeah.
only works on the handle when it's your body here, but on the
Yeah.
when you're walking, no,
Right.
it can run you.
Have you ever had an injury on the job?
No, I have not.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
So, I have got 2 more questions for you. I'm going to let you go. I want to go back to something that you said about at the very beginning. You were talking about when you first came to Springfield, and people said, "Oh, why are you living in Springfield?" I'm really curious about that. Tell me how you feel about Springfield and how Springfield has changed.
Well, it was in, I think, 1990, 91 or something like that. That was the first time I came to Springfield to visit
Mhm.
with some friends. And that was on Parkway. And at that time, was the first time that I crossed the bridge, from Glenwood
Mhm.
here. I go, man, are you really sure you're going to Springfield? I hear they're very racist down there, like that they didn't welcome minorities or something like that. The
Mhm.
university, Oregon, the Eugene University area was more welcoming, supposedly. And
Right.
so I that's my the stereotype that I hear about Springfield then, but
Mhm.
so I never came to Springfield, not until I hear in 2004, before 2005, when I worked at University District Hospital, around 2003 or something like that. I hear that PCL was planning of building Riverbend Hospital in Springfield because there were some issues with Eugene City Council or something like that. And so I go, wow, in Springfield. And so, and that was at that time. Then I was living in Springfield then in 2000 or something. I go, wow, that would be cool in Springfield because that's what I live. And then actually, so it happened 2005, and I just live 5 minutes away from the hospital.
Uh-huh.
But
Uh-huh.
I feel I never had any personal situations about racism or anything in Springfield. I actually experienced those in Eugene most,
Uh-huh.
so, but I was thinking, well, if that happens in Eugene, I don't know how it would be in Springfield,
Right.
where I hear rumors that's worse over there than here. So
Are you connected to any of the Latinx organizations or community organizations or anything in Springfield?
no, I'm not. And I said, what happens is my job at the loading dock is 8:30 to 5. So I'm my schedule where most of my day is kind of gone,
Yeah.
and so
Right.
I got the scheduling at the loading dock. I created my own schedule because when I first
Right.
started, they were telling me, Fidel, you're gonna be working for 7 to 3:30. I didn't work, and I said, well, it doesn't work.
Right.
So that's what I changed it
Now,
to 5.
does your wife work outside the home as well?
No, well, I'm divorced from my second wife too.
Oh,
So
okay.
so
Are you single parenting then? You've got your kids at home or are they with their mom?
no. So we are all here. So what happens is
Yeah.
we divorced in 2002. So we were separated for 3 years. She's from Colombia.
Hmm. Colombia.
So
Okay.
from Colombia. So she was in Colombia, but we get along. So that was
Hmm.
the good thing is we
Good.
get along. We live together here because she goes back and forth to Colombia.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So she manages a hostel or a little hotel, a
Hmm.
touristic hotel in Salento, Colombia. And
Oh,
so she goes back and forth, and but no. So my kids go and visit, but right now we're all here. And so, but she used to work at the hospital, and
oh,
so
she did work at the hospital.
she did
Okay.
work at the hospital then.
Yeah, I think you said you met her at the hospital,
Yeah, I
maybe.
met at the
Yeah.
hospital. Yeah.
Right. So, okay, last question for you. I appreciate the time you've taken with me. When you
Sure.
look back at your job and the career that you have in healthcare, do you have any other reflections or observations about what the work has meant to you and its impact on your life over time?
Yeah. I was thinking that when man, I don't know how to say this. I think when I think about peace health, what the peace health means to me. Man. Um. Well, I met some of my best friends that shared their experiences. I think that what I know about the hospital, my experience, I learned that because of shared experiences. The bosses that I
Hmm.
had before,
Hmm.
uh, they're still my friends. Even they're retired, I'll still talk to them. They moved to Arizona, the weather. So, but I still talk to them. But they were my bosses when I first started at Peace Health, and so all that experience they share with me, and that's what I have. But they provided me a lot of critical thinking. They will say, "Hey,
Hmm.
Fidel, my friend, look at this and this is how you do it. Think about this and that." So that's one of the things that I never thought about, but I will experience on my life because, as I said at the beginning, I used to do dishes and I used to work picking strawberries and Johnson City and everything. And so I never ever thought about working at a hospital, not until 1997.
Hmm. And how about if you think about your experience being in the union over time? What does that experience mean to you?
The experience of the union has been also great because it has provided me means to better my life financially, because before the union in 2015 or 16, I remember I was making like 17.54 an hour. And once we signed the first contract, the first year on the contract, then I went to almost $21.
Yeah.
just like
Big
just like
change.
a big change.
Yeah.
And then throughout the years, and then now, with the new contract now that we got. So when I think about the union, I think, well, before the union, I was making $17 and something, and now I make almost $30 an hour.
Yeah. That's a huge change.
Yeah, and so, but it wasn't easy because I had to talk to my bosses, and I said, look, I mean, it got to the point where I had to change job titles just on paper. In order for me to make more money, the money that I'm making now, if I wanted to make the money, I would have to move to the warehouse. That's where you make more money because everything comes there, all the trucks, everything. And so, and I work at the loading dock. They said, no, Fidel, you want to make more money, you need to go to the warehouse. At the same time, they realized, well, the loading dock job cannot be done without Fidel.
Yeah, right.
And so they had to make a decision because I put them on a hot spot and I said, look, if you can, I know you can't. This has nothing to do with your union. This is peace help. All I want you to do is change the title. Even if I'm not at the warehouse, I'm working as hard and I'm taking huge responsibilities here. But if you cannot meet what I think I should deserve, I deserve, then I will go back and do something else. I don't want to if I'm making the same money, I'd rather do something else with less responsibilities for the money that I'm making.
Right.
And
so they recognize that.
Yeah, well,
they changed then.
They recognize that because I applied for the other job and then they call me right away. Hey, hold on. And then they sit on the table and talk to me. And so they agreed to that change. Yeah. Otherwise, I would have been making 25 something.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Hey, this was wonderful. I appreciate you taking the time. I got two things. Now I need to send you a release form to allow me to use this. So what I'd like to do is mail it to you. Are you okay giving me your address for me to mail you this form?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Go
ahead.
1019.
1019.
North 4th Street, Springfield, Oregon.
I know where that is. Yeah.
It's Springfield, Oregon, 97477.
Okay. And I'm also trying to get a picture of everybody like just a portrait picture. Do you have like just a digital snapshot of you that you could send me?
Like just my face, or you want muscle?
Yeah, a headshot, I think. Yeah.
Oh, a headshot.
Just your face.
Sure.
If you could do that, if you could just attach it to an email and send it to me, would that?
Sure, I can do. Yeah.
Okay. I'll mail you this release, and I'll keep you posted about what we're doing. The exhibit is going to open on February 10th. So that's a Friday night. It's as part of the art walk that they do in Springfield. It'll be part of that. So I'll let you know about that.
Sure.
What's happening, and maybe you can come to the opening. So
sure.
Thank you so.
What is your background? What is it that you do?
Oh, my background. So I'm sorry I didn't tell you enough about myself. I'm a retired professor at the University of Oregon, and I worked in a department there called the Labor Education and Research Center. And what we did was provide classes for union members all around the state. And so many SEIU 49 members were members of my class. And one of my academic background is as a labor historian. I've done research on history of workers in the United States and the history of unions in the United States. But mainly what I did when I taught was I taught classes like shop steward classes, bargaining committee classes, stuff like that. And I got involved in the labor movement as an organizer in Alabama in the 1970s. And then I went from that into being what this field is called labor education. And I taught at the University of Minnesota. Then I moved out here, and I retired 10 years ago, and I live over in Eugene, the River Road area. but I'm still involved in these projects that involve workers' history. So yeah, I'm retired, but I still got some projects, and
Oh, wonderful.
yeah, so I'm what's called a labor educator. Although I work in a university environment, mainly what I taught was people just like you, adults who would take a continuing education class about how to be a more effective shop steward, stuff like that. So uh, yeah, and
Wonderful.
Kevin, your organizer there, he worked a little bit at our center, and I got his name, called him, and I said, who are some good people I could talk to over at Riverbend? And he gave me your name, and he told me, he said that you had a really interesting story to tell, and he was really right.
Yeah. Well,
It's a very interesting story.
I submitted something because he asked me for something. Hey, Fidel, can you share something for that we can share on the union, like the newspaper?
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
I shared something that they didn't like.
Oh,
Because
they didn't like it.
well, because I like poetry. I really like
Uh-huh.
poetry and like that, and so I submitted something. I said, no, Fidel, this is too political. We don't want it.
Oh, really?
So I
So
say
you're a
something.
poet. You're a poet?
Well, I like. I mean, I don't publish anything. I mean, I share with my friends, but no, I'm not. I don't. Whenever I go to Woodville or St. Minutes and I see a lot of books there, that I go, who's this poet? And so I always think about my books being there. So no, I just write for fun, but it is fulfilling. It just to do that.
Absolutely.
But anyway, so what I share with them is I say, okay, so I share some little sentence. I said, if the leadership will share a little bit, I'm talking about peace health,
Yeah.
a little bit will make a lot of people happy.
Uh-huh.
And so, because when I look at the sheet of how much they make a year,
Yeah.
and they said, no, no, Fidel, we don't want to do that.
Uh,
It's too political. So, but
well, so you're a poet who works on the loading dock. Those are two good vocations, you know.
yeah, I always think like in regards to the poetic, likes that I have and the loading dock and everything, and because of still have the strength and the experience and that I sweat, but I make things possible. And
Right.
in that I had to make sure I have some time at the end of the day for writing,
Yeah.
because I always think, well, I will never be a paid poet, like go to like that. But you know what? It feels good to be paid to write poetry here at the hospital once in a
Right.
while.
And
So
so is most of your poetry about work?
no, it's romantic, poetic,
Uh-huh.
like love, but sometimes and some like, there's poet like from the United States, Bukowski, like
Yeah.
fuck, like
Charles Bukowski.
yeah,
Yeah.
like saying, fuck this shit or something like that, like things like that.
Well, now he worked in the post office, right? And I
Hmm.
think he wrote some about the post office. He's a pretty interesting character.
Yeah,
So, do you
I
like, now you don't sound like, you don't look like the sort of guy who would write like Bukowski.
no, I mean sometimes, I mean,
So,
because
uh-huh.
a lot of where I share my poetry with my friends, I write mostly romantic poetry and some in English,
Yeah.
but like, but sometimes I write something, I go, what the heck, Fidel, are you okay?
Yeah.
Because I said, well, I don't know, I just feel shitty today or something. But
Well, it's a good way to get,
yeah,
get those things off your chest, isn't it?
yeah, but I really like that because at the hospital, because of all the things that I experienced, not just like, I mean, I have it's just incredible the hospital what it could provide to you if you are not poetic or anything like that, but I experienced the relationship with doctors, with
Yeah.
deceased patients, when I did deceased patients going by, my coworkers, but mostly I never thought I would interact with doctors, I mean, I have
Uh-huh.
heart doctors and the emergency doctors and everything, and they all have different personalities. You know, there are doctors that they really
Yeah.
think like, I only ride the elevator by myself, you know,
Right.
and otherwise than the one that, you know, it's just different personalities. And then there's other doctors that are very friendly. Hey, Fidel, how's it going? I say, good, doctor, I have a package for you. It's a special package. Oh, Fidel, here, come on, have a chocolate. Hey, you want something? How's your day going? And so that's an experience that if I wouldn't been working at the loading dock,
Right.
I would not have that experience going to doctors' offices, you know, to
Right.
visit.
Absolutely. So
Or
it's probably changed your view of doctors, working with them as opposed to, just seeing them as the people you go to when you're sick.
yeah, in fact, I mean, they even help, you know, like, I mean, it's like friends, you know, hey, Fidel, anything, how do you feel? Are you okay? They go, no, doctor, I feel like this. And they say, well, use this, buy this or that. And I said, thanks, doctor, you save me money.
Right.
So when they
And
get,
and now those doctors over at Riverbend, they have a union, right?
they do, yes.
Yeah.
And I think
And
that was the first union in the United States.
yes, yes. And so I believe that my old internist is, you know a guy named Littell, Dr. Littell?
That which area do you work on
Well,
which field?
he's a hospitalist, so he's
Oh,
a full-time
hospitalist, yes.
doctor, and he's a
Yeah,
full-time doctor in the hospital, and it's Littel. Now he's a little younger than me. I'm 70. He's got to
yeah,
be in his 60s by now, but
yeah,
I think he was involved in the organizing campaign
yeah,
for the
probably
doctors.
because they went when we were organizing on the first contract, they were part of we supported each other.
Yeah,
The
right.
hospitalists and ourselves and our thing. But what happens is that these doctors, the hospitalists, they live on the 8th floor. They
Yeah,
have like a big suite out there,
yeah,
and sometimes, you know, because it's like a hotel, like a little hotel room where they live, and
yeah,
they rotate and sleep there and everything. So we had to replenish the place with
right.
all kinds of stuff, you know. So,
Yeah,
I don't really see them much because they work, you know, they sleep there. So
yeah, right.
I don't really see them.
How many days are they there in a row? Two or
I
three in a row?
I don't really know that, you know, because
Yeah,
I mean, they're way out there, so
yeah,
I don't really know about their, you know, through the union. Now that they have a union, I don't really
yeah,
know.
right. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to, if you can send me a picture, I'm going to mail you this release form, and I hope our paths will cross again.
Oh,
I
well,
bet
do
they
man,
will.
if that day comes from February 10, you say?
Yeah, yeah. Maybe you can come to the event.
Sure.
I'll make sure you know about it.
Sounds good,
Okay.
Owen.
Have a nice weekend. See you,
Yes,
Fidel.
you too, Marcus. Thank you. Bye bye.
Yep.